Hi and welcome to cubicat.com. This is Maziar Sharifian and I'm here yet with another tutorial in Nuke teaching you how to do a 3D camera stabilization. If you want to know what I'm about to do in After Effects term, it's like warp stabilization, but we're going to do it manually. Which is awesome because as you already know, sometimes you can't trust an automated system because you don't have much control over its functions. The same way a professional photographer doesn't capture photos with the A mode, with the automatic mode, and always captures photo with a manual mode. I hope you're also in that stage and you want to have more control over your warp stabilization so you can have a perfect camera stabilization without any jittery, warpy edges. So before getting into that, I want to quickly talk about different type of camera shakes that can affect your captured pixels. So it's either shake in position or it's a shake in rotation. A shake in rotation is easier to fix because it has the minimum amount of parallax in the pixels. What I mean by parallax, if you move your camera in space, it can be left, right, up, down, forward, backward, the positioning of the objects relative to each other will change. Closer the objects are to you, you see a big change. Further they are, you see less and almost no change. But if you just rotate, or in other words, pan or tilt the camera, and don't move it in space, objects or pixels don't move relative to each other. Of course, you might see a tiny bit of change in the objects that are super close to the camera. That's because usually the pan and tilt of the camera, it's not exactly a nodal camera movement. And if what I mean by nodal movement is that if you look at the camera from above, the rotation axis is usually off a little bit from the nodal point of the camera, which is usually, it's kind of in the middle of the lens. So in a way, you're just moving space as well, in addition to like the rotation, which will give you a little bit of parallax. And which is why, I mean, usually in a 360 photography, you need camera nodal movement. That's totally another topic. Just know that it's easy to stabilize the rotation of a camera rather than moving like in space. So what we are going to work on is actually a plate. It's a background plate that I captured. It's actually handheld. This is actually footage for a background of another like green screen car, so we can just put it in the background. But as you can see, it's pretty shaky and it's not usable. We need to just stabilize it. So regarding the type of shake that I told you, thankfully it's mostly like rotational shake that rather than like a position, because it's on a car, so the motion of the car itself, it's not shaky, it's pretty smooth. At some point maybe the camera would rotate on its axis, but it's not like it's not like just handheld, like just someone walking. So I wasn't like walking, I was in a car, so it's not just going up and down, and those motions are a little bit more tricky. Not that we can't fix them, but it's like it does need more work. But here, if you have like a rough mesh of the environment, that's enough. Even sometimes you can just do like a card, like you don't need to recreate the whole scene in 3D, create the whole mesh of the scene in the 3D. You can just make a card and just project it. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create like a mesh of the whole environment. So in case you have like a bit of like parallax here and there, you can fix that as well. And your stabilization is not just a 2.5D stabilization that's been done with After Effects, and you have more control over it for sure. So to do that, we're going to just do like a camera tracking. If you want to know about camera tracking, you can take a look at the new crash course and the advanced tools. I talked a little bit about camera tracking, so I'm going to be quick. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm not going to remove the people. Because again, you need to check the motion of the pixels. Whatever's like stationary, you need to just keep that. But whatever motion which is not related to the camera, you need to remove it. For instance, this woman just walking, or even the reflection here, or even the reflection here, like the highlights, like of the sky. So you see the motion, it's not related. So like the highlights here, if you want to have a clean camera tracking, a perfect camera tracking, you need to do that. But I mean, for stabilizing this footage, we don't need a perfect track, or even these people like are just walking. So and again, I have enough information like on the walls and the ground, so I'm not worried about like those data just polluting my tracking data. In that case, I'm not going to just make a mask, so I'm going to just leave it like that. It's a free camera, unknown lens. I know the lens that I use, but it's cropped, so it's not the actual footage. It's been cropped a little bit, so basically I can't use that. I can't just tell what's the lens. And the camera as well, it's because it's cropped, it's a little bit tricky. The good thing about like camera tracking in Nuke is that it doesn't necessarily need these. If you have these, definitely your track is going to be better. It's going to be like accurate. So this was captured with a Blackmagic Pocket 4K, but I mean, if you know the film backplate, you can just apply it here. It does have some presets, but for now it's fine. The only thing that we need to change always is the amount of like features. I'm gonna make like 1,000 maybe, and maybe decrease this maybe to 3 or maybe 5. It's fine. And let's just take a look at the features as well. Sorry. So I think this looks decent. So now I'm gonna just start tracking this. It's going to take a while, maybe like 2 minutes. And again, this is like a long shot. I mean, comparing like a visual effect shots, I mean, the average is it's around 100 frames. So this is like 200 frames. So it's kind of a little bit long, and it's like just a car, like a camera, like on a car, like just driving through the streets. So I have so much information, like just it's great for me to track, but at the same time the process can take more than the average as well. And you'll see that when I'm creating the point cloud, that also can take a while, because I have like so much stuff happening in the scene. The scene is huge. It's the whole street, and I need to just create it. It needs to create. It has like so much new pixels. It needs to create all the buildings on the ground. But if you're just filming like inside like a house or something, it might be faster. So let it just finish, and then well, hopefully it's going to be we don't need to worry about the it's going to just ignore for instance, this woman just walking. It's going to ignore those features because it's not matching everything else, or even these reflections. So this is the track. I need to just solve it. Solving usually takes it's faster than just tracking. It's pretty quick. Let's see how much error I'll get. Okay, so the error is not bad, and as you can see, it's like just these rejected tracks. Sometimes you can just go and just delete the rejected tracks features, even like the unsolved ones, and just go and update it. But I think it's decent. I have enough information to have like a really like a good camera tracking like data. So I think yeah, 1.52 is fine. So now what I'm going to do is like just press, I'm going to press tab and just take a look at the scene. So this looks this is the whole scene, so you can see the ground, like the street and the buildings. It's like I mean, the point cloud itself, like when it generates, it's not great. We're going to just make another one, but I think this is decent. The only thing is that maybe sometimes it doesn't, like, it depends on what points you're choosing, but I mean, this is like pretty there's like a good texture of the asphalt. You can see like points on the ground. So I mean, I can just easily just right click on this and just set it to the ground plane, and this is gonna just make it a little bit better. Sometimes I mean you can do this, sometimes you can just skip it. It's just for your scene, the orientation of your scene. So this is fine. This is okay. So next step is that, so you can just like usually we can just start like making like a scene plus, and it creates like a bunch of nodes, but I'm going to go one by one so you can see what we need to create, what needs to be linked, what needs to be unlinked. So first thing first is like on distortion node. So so obviously we're going to project the undistorted image. So if I just look at the this undistorted image, and as you can see, I mean, some of the distortion here, it's fixing that. It's not perfect. I mean, to be honest, if you have like a lens lens grid footage, that would be perfect. So you can just film that with your lens. So you can undistort it by yourself, like manually. But I mean, it's camera tracking. Sometimes it gives you something, so it's not bad. So this is going to be our undistort, but the only thing is that it's going to just put those extra pixels outside of the format as a bounding box. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just set into the output format into bounding box. So it's going to give me this. And I'll make sure that I have like 1920 1080, the whole the setup for the project settings. So this is going to be our projection, and obviously when I'm done with my projection, I can just revert it back into like redistort, right? And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create the camera. So I'll just go create 2 cameras. Why 2 cameras? So this camera is going to be the projection. So whatever I'm going to just be projecting, it's going to use this camera. But the second camera, which I'm going to uncheck this link output, is going to be my stabilized camera. Because I'm going to just manipulate like the keyframes. So this is going to be my stabilized camera. So maybe I can just rename it as well, stabilized. And this is maybe projection. So first thing first, we need to just create. So to be honest, for this scene, if we look at the point cloud, I can create like really like 2 cards, one like for the ground and one for these buildings, and maybe 3 cards. But in case you have a more complicated scene, I'm going to show you how to just quickly. You have that in the advanced tools as well, the crash course. But you can easily create the whole scene, like a mesh of the whole scene, and that's the beauty of working with Nuke. Is that and even stabilizing it instead of like warp stabilizer in After Effects, is that you can just recreate the whole scene like really quick if you have enough data, like a good camera tracking and enough data. So this is the source. This is the camera I generated. Like I'm using a point cloud generator, so I'm going to analyze the scene. It's better than the default point cloud that Camera Tracker creates. So you'll see that it's you can even recognize some of the objects in the scene. Maybe the car, like I think there was like a UPS car or like some cars, like parked cars. So and it's so I'm gonna just do this global. So the only thing about this process is that because it's a huge scene, it's what is it? It's a street and it's like some buildings, and so it does have like so much information, so much points. It's great because the analysis it's going to be better, but at the same time it's going to just take a while. I think it's going to take maybe like 2-3 minutes to 5 minutes for this process. It depends on your computer as well. But I mean, you'll see that if you can just wait 5 minutes. I think the warp stabilizer as well. I mean, when you're like processing it, it takes some time. But here, I mean, we have a couple of more steps that we need to do if you want to have a perfect like mesh of the, not perfect, but a general mesh of the whole environment. And if you want to recreate the whole scene in 3D, a rough scene. So when you stabilize the new camera and there's like a little bit of parallax issue, it's going to fix it. It's going to basically fix it. Don't think that this is going to do like a miracle if you're like just going around an object or just you know what I mean. It's like just it's not going to do a miracle, but I mean small like details, like a really tiny parallax happening. You can just really get deep into camera stabilization and really just fine tune it instead of just applying like a warp stabilizer and just a couple of like sliders that you have no idea what are they doing in the background, like smoothness and you know what I mean. So I mean, I'm not saying that bad. That's not good. I mean, that's good for like some quick like camera stabilizations. But if you're working professionals, definitely you get to a point that like the client would ask, okay, the edges, they look warpy. It's like, what's happening in the edges? Can you fix that or something like that? And at that point, you will realize, okay, I need to do it like a better job at this. Like I can't just use the warp stabilizer. So yeah, let's just wait for this to finish, and you'll see what I'm talking about, the whole like 3D scene. Okay, so I think it took about like maybe, I don't know, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, I don't know, something like that. So this is as you can see, it's much better than, if I just, it's much better than, let me double, than this, right? It's more details, and if I even if I just turn this off, and I can just delete rejected points and just zoom in, and you can see like the UPS car here, and you can see some of the cars here, and the taxi here. So it's kind of it's more details, and you can see some stuff happening here. So what I'm going to do now is create like a mesh based on this scene. What we are going to do is that I'm going to go to selection tool, and I'm going to select, like, just put like the vertex selection. I'm going to like just select everything. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, it's going to take a while, but you'll see how you can just easily create like a rough mesh of the whole scene. I'm going to just create a group, and then I'm going to just bake like everything I have in the scene into a mesh. So this also will take like maybe like I don't know 3 to 5 minutes, and I mean, you'll see the result is rough, but I mean it's almost it's perfect for like a projection, especially I mean, as I'm going to get back to the theory, whatever objects is in the distance, and you're just fixing the camera, like its motion, like stabilizing the camera, and it's just fixing it in space. Even if it's like in motion in like space, it's not rotation, yeah, but still the objects that are like super far away, you wouldn't be able to see any change in parallax. So the objects that are like super close to you are you're going to see a big change. So it's going to fix them. But I mean, apart from that, it's barely noticeable. So let's see when it's done. I mean, you'll see that we have a mesh of the scene. And there's something else. I mean, if you have a crazy scene and sometimes you have a crazy shake or whatever, and at some points you really want to create a perfect mesh, or you want to just make like a mesh from the scene, and you have your camera here inside Nuke, you can just get this mesh and put it inside Maya and start like just making it perfect. But I mean, not that we don't have like nodes here to edit meshes. I'll show you how to just edit mesh if you want it. But I mean, you can just continue working on this and make it like a perfect, like a representations of the scene in 3D space by going to a 3D application and making it like perfect. But yeah, let's see. This is almost over. So this is our mesh. So don't worry, we are not going to do any more like any more of these like processes. So if I look at it and I just close this, and let me just put it back into the node selection so we won't see these like points. And let's just look at this mesh. So this is the mesh that it created. It's not perfect, but it's gonna do its job. These are like some of the cars, and it's like just again, I mean, you can just go to inside what is it, Maya, and just create like a better mesh. But or you can just edit it roughly here as well. I mean, I can just do like an edit geo and just go and just for instance, let me just do a little bit of like a cleanup on this and just move this a little bit further, so I can just extend in a way. I mean, I don't need to extend this part because this is the part that's like outside of the what is it, outside of I don't need, I mean, I might have to just do this, extend these parts, but I mean, not here. But I mean, you can either like edit this, or I can just add a couple of cards into this geo, like merge geo. So if I just add a merge geo, and I'll do like make it like big, not that big, not that small. Maybe 25. So let's go back to Node, and I'm gonna just do something like that. So let's just look at the top view. So what I'm gonna do is that so again, I'm not worried about this like being like a super what is it, perfect. I just need to fill the gaps in the background, because it's gonna have some holes in the background if you're gonna project it. So this is gonna be my background. I'm gonna just create another one for top view for, where did it go? For here, something like that. Okay, it's, I don't know why it keeps like hanging. This is fine. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think these two are fine. I don't need to worry about the ground. I think the ground is fine. So now I have a mesh. Now I just need to project it, project the footage on top of this mesh. To do that, I'm going to use a 3D project. Okay, project 3D. The camera and undistorted mesh, undistorted footage. And I'm going to just apply a material on top of this. This is a material. And here we go. We have our scene. And if I just add like a scanline renderer, get my camera. For now, I'm going to use this camera so you can see. Look at it. This looks, I mean, it's not going to look exactly like this because of the this lens distortion. So to fix that, if you add an undistorted node here, it's not going to fix it because it's kind of it's not matching, as you can see, because it's first of all, this is like 1920 1080, which is kind of like shrinking it, the render. So to fix that, let me just make it a little bit more pleasing. To fix that, I'm going to change the format of the scan on renderer, because this is based on your project settings. To do that, you can just easily add a reformat node to this background and create a new format. Ooh, it's so slow. And then here, like 2052. I think I already created it. Yep. So if you don't have a new if you don't have a format listed, you can just create it and name it and just put it there, right? So then this render is going to match the resolution than this, right? But now if I just add this undistort, still it's not matching, because the output format, it's based on the bounding box. So if I just put it at the format, still it's not matching. So the reason for that is because this distortion happened on the 1920 1080 version of this, and now this undistortion is happening on this 20, and I mean the extra resolution. So before that, we need to just reformat it back into what is it, 1920 1080. So the distort node, the top one was like undistorted. The distort node needs to be applied to the same resolution. So I'm going to just have the same scenario here, like 1920 1080. I'm going to just put it at none, so it's not just scaling or just doing anything. So if I look at this, now I see this is matching, but I have some edge issues. There's when you reformat something, even though you have the information on the edges, we need to just preserve the bounding box, so that when we are reformatting it, we need to just preserve it, right? So when I do that, now it's a match, right? So basically you're gonna say, okay, we didn't do anything, right? I mean, this is like exactly, this is the input, this is the output. I mean, nothing has happened. Now we're gonna just do this. We're gonna just apply this camera instead of this camera. But This camera, if we go to the keyframes, it's gonna look ugly. Let me see, curves. So if we look at the translate, as you can see, it's pretty linear. It's pretty like clean, because again, we are in a car. Maybe why a little bit, it needs a little bit of fix, but I mean, in general, it's not that bad. I mean, we can just fix this as well. Usually I just do this. I mean, when I'm just adding like a filter to keyframes, I usually select everything in between. I'm not messing up the first and the last keyframes. I don't want to just mess them up. So you select those keyframes, go to right click, edit, filter, and then apply a filter into it. Maybe like 5. I don't know. I mean, another 5. I mean, it's just visually you see how it gets better. I mean, I think the Y, it's fine. It's not that bad. But I mean, if we go to rotation and press F, it's really, really bad. So if I just select these apart from the first and the last keyframes, I even go crazier, like 10. Filter it twice. This is not bad. Go to Y. The Y is not bad. I mean, the rotation in Y-axis is not bad, but I'm going to just filter it anyway. Maybe like, yeah, 10. It's fine. And then Z. Whoa, this is really bad. This is my hand, right? This is my hand, like my shaky hand when I was like just filming. So let's just fix this. Much better. So now if I look at the render here, for instance, in the middle, and this, you see there's a little bit of change. That's what we want. So let's take a look at the this render. Let's take a look at the input. Really bad. Really, really bad. Okay, now let's take a look at the output. I mean, obviously you'll see some like edges that later on you can just scale it up. I mean, as you can see, I have a little bit of issues up here. I think the one of the cards is not like tall enough, so I think it's this one. If I just increase this, maybe 35, it's gonna fix that. Here we go. So make sure you don't have any holes when you're like projecting it, even if you're like just making and again, I mean, maybe you can just use like a card and just put it like in a distance and just make it huge. I mean, that might work as well for the for this specific shot, but I showed you how to recreate the scene in 3D in case you have like crazy parallax. Again, we have some stuff happening here at the bottom. So I think this is because of the ground, because none of these will fix that, or it does. I mean, this is actually the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a new card. And what I'm going to do is, this is the card, and I'm going to just make it like a, oops. Let's just, oops. Why can't I see this? Okay. So this is minus 90. So this is going to fix that. Woo! Why it's so slow? If I go down, I mean, my ground plane is like pretty close. So this is going to fix that. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Yep. So I made it a little bit bigger, and now let's take a look at this. More holes. Yeah, I think this is this one. I think I need to make this one as well. Like, this is the background. Yep, this is the, if I just make it a little bit bigger. I just need to just extend it, right? Those cards. And I mean, I'm pretty sure this is it. And yeah, just look at these, like the distance. I mean, of course you'll see some parallax happening here, as you can see. I mean, this is gonna disappear, I guess, this negative space here. But it's, if you fix the camera, like the shake, what I'm doing with the fixes, it's not gonna have an effect in here. But if it does, I mean, having a perfect mesh would help. So let it just render, and let's see how this looks. All right, here we go. So as you can see, it's a decent stabilization, even though you have some motion blur issues that, I mean, again, it's not gonna fix those. So I mean, if you want to make it perfect, you need to just go and reproject those and like fix those frames and in between. Yeah, that's so basically we got from this, and we fixed the camera shake, and in a way we did like the warp stabilization without those weird edges, like weird jittery edges and just weird warpy edges, like weird warps in the corners. Yeah, so thanks again for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. Please leave your comment below if you have any feedback, and if you really liked it, you can subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you next time. Stay safe.